Hi, this is the Professional Amateur Hour coming to you with another review. This week I checked out the movie Fight or Flight, and this 2025 film was directed by James Madigan and stars Josh Hartnett, Karithra Chandran, and Starbuck herself, Katie Sackhoff, among others, of course. So what is the story of this film? Well, this one, it follows Josh Hartnett's character, and he's like this bounty hunter type of guy, and he is in a situation where he's the only one who's able to help the CIA or FBI or whatever it might be. So they get him to get on this plane where there is this mysterious hacker called the Ghost, and he has to, kidnap that hacker and then bring him in alive. However, there's also 100 hitmen on the plane also looking for the Ghost. And then something happens and they kind of get, Josh's picture as well. So now they're going after him. And it's just one giant brawl on a plane for like at least 45 minutes. And what will happen? Well, for that, you gotta watch the movie and find out. All right, so let's discuss Fight or Flight. Well, with this one, it is a crazy action film where they really just have a giant brawl on this plane for most of the time. So they are just, kicking each other's butts. They're, using champagne glasses to stab each other. There is a bunch of other things that they use and find and, to kill each other. At one point, they use the cart to ram down the aisle and stuff like that. And it's just crazy fights the whole way through. Of course, they're absurd, and that's kind of part of it. Like, that's the style they're going for. The absurdity is part of the attraction. And then it even takes the absurdity up to 11 because a bunch of monks are on the plane as well, and they're Shaolin monks, so they know karate and kung fu, and they get involved. And now it's Josh Hartnett fighting monks, fighting assassins, and all this other stuff. And of course, they got to find the Ghost. And who is that? Well, they don't actually know at the beginning. And so it is just one wild plane flight away from disaster. And because of it's so chaotic and so absurd, I gotta say that is actually really entertaining when it comes down to it. And I would say with this film, it does remind me quite a bit of another movie called Bullet Train with Brad Pitt. This one is him, just in the air instead of on a train. Of course, there's some differences. There's not as many assassins in Bullet Train. This one has, 100 assassins on this thing. And so they get, dispensed with quite easily. But at the same time, they don't have, stations to go through or things to offload and onload. It's just, one flight. So they are just having this brawl in the sky. And if you liked Bullet Train, you'll probably like this one as well. In addition, it is quite tightly paced. I think it is kind of aiming for more of a younger audience, maybe ones that are more familiar with short form content, as this one really just is kind of things happening. Here's something else. Here's a new guy. And they'll even have just assassins jump out of the toilets and now we're in another fight. So someone who has a less of an attention span can, I think, watch this film and enjoy it because it is so tightly paced. I would say maybe the second act is not as interesting as the other acts, but they're really just kind of getting Josh to the plane at that point. So I would say it works for a younger audience, but for someone like me, an older guy, I enjoyed it as well. I'm fine with fast paced as well. So it certainly does work for, I think, a lot of people with this one. Another thing I enjoyed was the characters. They're all kind of very one-dimensional characters. Once you see someone, you kind of know who they are, especially if they're, dressed up in a monk outfit. They're just going to be a monk the whole time. And I would say the actors do a good job, but the thing that I enjoyed the most with the actors is everyone's just so handsome and pretty that I just enjoyed, looking at everybody. And I don't even think there's really an ugly person on the whole cast, even with Katie Sackhoff. And she's not, my type, but she looks good in this one with her hair pulled back. I don't know, maybe it's the haircut or something like that, but she looks good too. Josh looks good. Shar looks good. They all just look good in this one. So it's also a situation where you don't mind looking at the screen. And that, I would say, is probably a good thing for any movie. And I think that brings me to what doesn't work with this one, because it is quite a flawed movie. Certainly, with the whole concept of this one, just a brawl in the sky, you're not going to get story, you're not going to get character development, you're not going to get anything that, has a regular movie kind of tone to it. It's really just about them fighting in the sky. They don't even really kind of get to know each other, and we don't get to know them either because of that. And that, I would say, is probably going to be the biggest flaw of this one. In addition, with all of the hitmen in this one, they are really just nameless guys. Like, they are very bland as well. Like, I know it's a plane, so no one has, like, a special weapon. It's not like you can bring in weapons on the plane after all. There was only one hitman that I actually remembered. And that was, I guess I remember the first hitman that he kills because he actually has the conversation and talks to the guy. But after that, there is one guy who pulls a knife out of the clarinet. He plays the clarinet for a little bit and then pulls the knife out of it. But that's the only two assassins out of the 100 that are on the plane that you can actually kind of identify for any real reason. And that, I would say, is a problem as well. Like, you don't get to know them. They're just cannon fodder. They're just like slapping them left and right, like coming at the one at a time. Of course, it's down the aisle, so that kind of makes sense. But just one punch, then one punch, and then one punch, and then, three guys are down. And it is a two-story plane, like 2 levels. And so guys just like come up from the first level to the second level where Josh is, or Josh goes down to the second level, and whatever it might be. And that just kind of seemed unrealistic as well. So there is quite a few things that with the assassins, you can't think about it. It's really just for the fights. Just don't worry about story. Don't worry about characters. Don't even worry about fighting. It's all about the fights. So yeah, that can be an issue if you want, anything to think about in this one. Other flaws would be with the plane itself. This plane must be like an electric plane or something because it doesn't make any sounds. There's no wind sounds, there's no engine sounds, and they even go like down to the cargo hold where you assume it would be louder, but no, it's perfectly quiet outside this plane. Of course it's on a set. Of course they're doing that so that you can not just be annoyed by that sound the whole time. So it just makes it for an unrealistic experience, having been, on a plane many times before. The noise of a plane is part of the experience, and it's just lacking in this movie. And what else? With this one, it's done by Sky, which I think is like a TV channel in the UK. And from my understanding, they're kind of like Fox channel, so they're kind of more of a conservative leaning channel. And with this one, like, they just have like jabs at the left. Like, for example, they're walking like through a park and they see people doing yoga and they're like, oh, look at these woke people doing yoga. They would never be able to survive what we do. And it's just like, why make that comment? Like, it's out of nowhere. I'm not asking people to do yoga to do your job, right? Like, it's just so odd. But of course, you gotta have that jab in there somewhere. And that just adds to the flaws, I would say. It's just kind of out of place elements that maybe for the Sky Channel audience, it really plays well. But it just kind of seems out of place to me. So there are quite a few flaws with this one. And so would I recommend this film? Well, if you can find it and if you can turn your brain off, this is a good one to watch. It is just fights the whole time, or at least most of the time. So if you just want to see some crazy fights, then this is something to press play on. And as for a rating, well, because I just had so much fun with the fights, I ultimately have to give it a 5, which is the average score. And with that being said, I think that's all I wanted to say. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.